This is a tutorial on how to use a digital print PDF pattern to make a vest. The pattern that we're using is McCall's M8133. It is men's costumes. And what you need for this tutorial is some tape. You will be using Scotch tape, but the Amazon order hasn't arrived with the Scotch tape, so I've got blue tape, and a pair of scissors and your pattern. So when you open your folder, you will have two sets of things. You should have the instructions, which are these. They're all the instructions on how to sew the pattern together, how to cut and sew the pattern, and you will also have the physical pattern. So this right here is a diagram of how all these pieces tape together. Now you might not need all of the pieces, so the first thing you need to do is make sure you know what pieces you need. So there are 6 views of the vest. There's A, B, C, D, E, and F. So for today's tutorial, we are making A, and that is what we're doing right now for my tech theater class as well. So there are 12 pieces, and it says for vest A, B, C, D, E, and F. So it looks like I might need all of them, but I have to read the pattern. In addition, there is also yardage charts for how much yards you need for each fabric. I've put them in kits for you already, so you won't need to worry about that. There is also a sizing chart, and for this first one, we're all making a size small, but later on, we may be making different sizes, so you will have to look and see what your sizes are. It also gives you a breakdown, kind of like an overview of what they're asking you to do. So you want to look over this to make sure you understand what they're asking for, and then it begins to tell you what you need to cut. So we are making vest A. So for all sizes of vest A, it says we need pieces 1, 2, and 4. So I would look back over here, and I would see on my map, this is piece 1, 2, and 4. So that's what I would need for that. And I would also need, and it gives me a diagram of how I should cut it. It also tells me what I need to do for the lining fabric. And the lining fabric, I need pieces 1, 3, 5, and 6 for lining A, because we are making vest A. And that would be right here, 5, 6. And then I keep looking, see what I need to do. I'm not making vest D or vest E or vest F, so I'm good. So now I know what I need. So I might go back here and circle what I need. So I need 1, 2, 4, and that's what I needed for vest A out of the main color. And for lining A, I would need 1 again, because I need to cut it again. 1, 3, 5, and 6. So those are the pieces that I know that I will need to cut. So I've done all of those things. Now it is time for me to fetch my pattern pieces and cut them out. Now, it's a little bit tricky to do that, so that's what we need to do. So I set all my instructions off to the side. I want to keep them in order as best I can. If they get out of order, notice that there are page numbers, so you can put them in pages, and that will help you stay in order. So now this diagram, and now I know what pages, I know what pieces I need, so I need to get that paper out. So I'm going to look for the pieces. Now on the map, I can see that I need to lay all of them out. So the pages are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is the way that they need to be cut out or laid out and then taped together so then I can cut them out for the right ones. So because you're not sure if I'm going to be asking you to be making lots of different pieces, I would just lay the whole thing out, tape it all together, and then cut out all the pieces, because you can always fold the pieces and use the pieces later. So that's what I'm going to do right now, is lay these pieces out. So I've taped all the pieces that I need together. You see that the blue tape is not the best way to do it because it sometimes covers the words. So this is piece 1 that I needed, and I also needed 2, which is over here. This is 2, you can see it through the blue tape. Then I needed 4, which is here, 5, which is here, and then 6. Those were all the pieces that I needed. So now the next thing I need to do is cut them out, and I want to cut them out on the appropriate line. So you can see here there are different dashed lines. So you would cut on this line if you wanted the small, this line for the medium, this line for the large, extra large, 2X, and 3X. So we all need different sizes. You all are cutting on the small line. I'm going to cut on the large line because we do need some larger vests. So then we have different sizes. So I'm going to cut out along the large line. And anything that's like scrap, like this, that doesn't have anything that any pattern on it, I'm going to recycle. But if I look over here, this bit has a chunk of pattern, which means I need to make sure that when I cut it out, I know what piece it used to be on. So I need to write it in the pattern because I may need to tape that later. So I need to make sure I know where it's going. So anything that looks like I might be cutting it off later, I need to write what number the paper goes on. So now I'm going to cut all these out, and then I will show you how to pin it. Okay, now I have all my pattern pieces cut out. Now, this took me about an hour, so this is probably the time when the bell's gonna ring. So what you're going to do in order to make sure your pieces stay nice, because your pieces can't, they're not gonna be able to be rolled up. So you're going to come over here to my desk, pick up some push pins like this. Well, let me open them. Pick up some push pins. Write your name in pencil on the pattern so we know whose pencil it is or whose pattern it is. And then you're going to find somewhere on the wall that doesn't already have someone else's pattern on it. And you can take your whole stack of patterns and you're going to pin it. You can do the cork board if you want, or you're going to pin your pattern to the wall so it doesn't get wrinkled. Right? And then I'm going to have a bunch of pattern pieces hanging up in my classroom. So this is how you're going to safely store your pattern so that it doesn't get wrinkled and wrecked up while you are working on it. So I am going to go on to doing the next step because it's after school and I have time. But you can see it's wiggling. So I have 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. So on the pieces of paper, and I taped over some of them, so that means I might have to look under them. It tells me what I'm supposed to do. Like this says fabric, cut 2. So that means I need to cut 2 out of this fabric. Or this says fabric, cut 2. So you want to be careful. And this says fabric, cut 2. So you want to be careful that you don't cover your words with tape, but you'll have clear tape, so it won't be so bad for you. So now I'm going to go get my fabric and look at what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going back to my instructions, which I have right here, page 2. So I'm looking for page 3 because my pages are out of order. So I'm going to look for page 3 and then we'll come back. Okay, so I'm back and I found my proper pages. Now I have my main fabric, which is this turquoise houndstooth, and I have my black fabric, which is my lining fabric. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut everything out of my main fabric, which is indicated as fabric. So on my instructions, which is on page 6, it says I need to cut pieces 1, 2, and 4 for vest A. So I'm going to lay this out, and it shows me how to cut it out, and I need to cut 2 of vest A. So I'm going to cut 2 of vest A, and the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to keep the fabric folded in half to do it, and then I'll cut 2 of 4. I'm going to do this on the ground because it's easier for me than on the table. So let me get the ground set up, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I have my fabric laid out on the floor like this. I also needed a pin of tins I grabbed from the shelf. So what I want to do is I want to try and use the most of my fabric as I can. So I've pulled my pattern as close to the edge as I can, and I'm going to lay these out, and I want to try and use the most of the fabric. So I might tuck this in here, right? So I'm using the best layout of the fabric. I'm not like putting this in the middle because that would be wasting a bunch of fabric. So I'm trying to use my fabric wisely so the rest of it can be used for something else. Like this is enough scrap that could be used for another bag next year for the next year's class. So I've got this all laid out, and now the next thing that I need to do is I need to pin this down. So when I cut it, it'll be easier. My fabric won't move around. So that's what I'm going to use my pins for. Is I'm going to use my pins to cut or to pin the paper to it. So I'm pinning along the edge so that it's easier, my pattern stays in place, right? So I'm pinning all along the edge like this so my pattern stays in place, so it is easier to cut. Now, if you're doing it on the carpet, you want to be careful not to pin it to the carpet, because if you pin it to the carpet, it makes it very hard to cut. So I've got this all pinned. I'm pinning this one down too, and I'm pinning this one down too. Oops. And this one has pattern, so I want to make sure that I don't put it crooked on the houndstooth. All right, so now I've got it all pinned, and now I'm ready to cut. And it is very important that I cut smoothly and evenly as I go, because this is going on somebody's body. So what I like to do is I like to cut my big pieces first, and I'm cutting right as close to the line as I can. I can always clean it up later, but I'm cutting along the lines like this. So I like to kind of free it from the larger fabric first as I'm cutting. And then I keep cutting, following the line of the pattern as best as I can. So keep going. Now I've got it a little bit freer, I can kind of manipulate it around. So I scooted it closer towards me. Now I don't want it on the fold because it's a vest, so it needs to open up. So I'm going to finish cutting this, and then I'll just meet you back when I'm done.